السلام عليكم الحضور الكريم. في البداية أود أن أتقدم بشكر لمركز الإمارات للسياسات وللدكتورة ابتسام الكتبي زميلتنا في جامعة الإمارات، وحقيقة يعني حضور جميل جدا وحضور يعني غني جدا بكتاباته وأفكاره، وأعتقد أن هذا بيطلق حقيقة حوار استراتيجي جيد وتحت اسم ملتقى أبو ظبي الاستراتيجي الأول. إذا تسمحوا لي أنا كلمتي بالإنجليزي فببدأ أتكلم فيها، بس إذا مستعدين لها يعني. شكرا. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Abu Dhabi. It's a great pleasure for me to open the inaugural forum of the Abu Dhabi Strategic Dialogue hosted by the Emirates Policy Center. In these troubled times, there is an urgent need to enhance our common understanding of regional and global challenges and to align our strategic thinking to check emerging threats. Nowhere is this more the case than here in the Middle East and the Arab world, where regional peace and stability is once more under threat. Sectarian warfare in Syria and Iraq, triggered by repressive governance, rapid rise of Daesh, fueled by foreign fighters from around the world, militia violence and state failure in Libya, attacks on Yemen's sovereignty by foreign-financed Houthi rebels, and recent violence in Gaza and Israel's continuing occupation of Palestine. The list is long. In the face of these threats, there is a clear need for increased dialogue and coordinated action. The UAE is conscious of its regional responsibilities and is willing to act as part of a collective effort. None of these challenges can be tackled by regional actors alone. Instead, they require a concerted response, informed by a comprehensive strategy, employing a broad range of tools. It is essential that we see the strategic picture in the current complicated debris. We need to discern the values that need to be protected and successfully championed. Values such as national identity, stability, and an open-minded approach towards how societies and states should be governed. We must reject instability, born out of sectarianism and an outmoded and regressive view of our religion. This strategic outlook, underpinned by values, must be ever present in dealing with the current turmoil. Without this clarity of vision, many of our actions and collective efforts will seem aimless and ineffective. The broad scope and high-level attendance of today's conference is testimony to the urgent need for more coordinated action based on a comprehensive strategy. Before you engage in today's discussions, allow me to highlight some central areas of concern for the UAE in the region and that are crucial to the current situation. Extremism. Over the past few years, the UAE has repeatedly warned about the growing threat that extremist actors and ideologies pose to our region. While some of our allies thought that we were being too alarmist, the rise of Daesh confirms the magnitude of the threat. Instead of becoming moderated through engagement, so-called moderate Islamists are increasingly being drafted into the ranks of radical groups. This demonstrates the fallacy of trying to distinguish between moderate and radical forms of ideological extremism. Make no mistake, many of these movements that are described as moderate in some lexicons provide the environment for greater radicalization and the emergence of groups such as Al-Qaeda and Daesh. Therefore, countering the threat posed by these groups requires a clear-sighted and comprehensive strategy. On the one hand, we need to acknowledge that these actors and their radical ideologies, by their nature, cannot be moderated, manipulated, or contained. They are fundamentally opposed to the tolerant values and moderate agenda that unifies us in the UAE with many of our regional and international partners. To check them, we need to maintain a common front. We cannot fight extremism in one place while attempting to appease it in another for the sake of political expediency. That is why a strategic and intellectual framework on what constitutes extremism and how best to tackle it is required. Combating extremism requires a broad range of tools and a sustained effort by the international community. Although military operations and intelligence cooperation will form an important part of these efforts, it is crucial that our cooperation extends to other areas as well. Foremost is our ability to stitch together political conditions on the ground in order to consolidate military gains. Naturally, other measures will include financial controls, immigration, and cultural and educational measures. The UAE is willing to cooperate with its partners in all aspects of these efforts. Syria and Iraq. The ongoing instability in Syria and Iraq concern us all. Sectarian violence and sectarian ideology is increasingly spreading beyond the borders of both countries and affecting their neighbors. The millions of Syrians and Iraqi refugees represent an excruciating economic burden on neighboring countries and a threat to political stability. Moreover, both conflicts have attracted external actors that are cynically exploiting the situation on the ground in order to widen their area of influence. However, the drivers of instability in Syria and Iraq go well beyond the current challenge posed by Daesh and other extremist groups. At the root of the problem are the exclusionist and sectarian policies adopted by respective governments, preparing the ground for extremist actors. In Iraq, the formation of a new unity government, as well as yesterday's long-awaited appointment of a new defense and interior minister, have given reason for cautious hope. I have to, however, refer to the recent and uncalled for statement by Iraq's Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi in his comments on the previous statements by US Vice President Joseph Biden. These comments have unfortunately undermined the willingness of many countries in the Gulf to turn the page following the sectarian and exclusionist government of Nouri al-Maliki. Considering the importance and priority of creating a national and equitable government in Baghdad, the Prime Minister's statement produced grievous doubts to an already difficult enterprise. The failure of the international community to act early on in Syria allowed the situation to descend further and further into violent chaos. Urgent international action is now needed in order to strengthen moderate actors and to provide them with the tools to fight extremism and intolerance, while international airstrikes play an important role in checking the advances of Daesh. Ultimately, these cannot be enough on their own. Egypt. In our assessment, any strategy designed to bring peace, stability, and moderation to the Arab world requires success in Egypt. After years of instability, Egypt is at last returning to security and development, and it is on its way to resuming its historic and necessary place at the center of the Arab world. This is of central importance for our entire region. A stable and moderate Egypt is a cornerstone of regional stability and a barrier to the spread of extremist thought. However, as long as Egypt's economy remains fragile, it is important that the international community extends every possible means to support the Egyptian government to prevent the country from backsliding into chaos and instability. The UAE and Saudi Arabia have shouldered a large share of the burden of responsibility when it comes to supporting economic development in Egypt. If we have learned anything in recent years, it is that jobs and growth are the most effective safeguards against radical ideologies and sectarian hatred. In order to ensure a stable Egypt and a stable Middle East, it is crucial that the international community follows our path by providing greater support to the Egyptian government and by respecting Egypt's sovereign rights to deal with terrorism and disturbances on its territory in an even-handed manner. Iran. The GCC and Iran share a common neighborhood for which we have a joint responsibility. In this respect, the UAE, as other countries in the GCC, have welcomed the nuclear negotiations between the P5+1 and Iran. However, we consider it crucial that any future agreement with Iran on the nuclear file is airtight. Failure to conclude a solid agreement that prevents military nuclear proliferation could have serious consequences, not only in our region, but far beyond, by undermining the non-proliferation regime. Furthermore, I very much agree with Prince Saud Al Faisal's recent comments in his press conference with the German Foreign Minister. In these comments, he recognized the difference between Iran as state and society and Iran as an expansionist and aggressive foreign policy. The first we welcome and consider a worthy historical and geographical neighbor with whom we see continued cooperation. However, the continued expansionism of Iranian influence in the Arab world poses a major problem in GCC-Iran relations, as well as Arab-Iranian relations more broadly. This list is long and includes Bahrain, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and most recently and dramatically, Yemen. The fact that this foreign policy is inherently sectarian further exacerbates the tension in the region. An Arab-Iranian cooperative and comfortable relationship will very much depend on non-interference, respect for national entities, and sovereignty of national politics. Ladies and gentlemen, we in the UAE are proud of having built a model of tolerance and moderation in a region that has too often been driven by extremes. Due to the foresight of our leadership, our society has managed to undergo massive changes without sparking the same kind of violence that has affected other societies. We're proud of this achievement and of providing inspiration in a region where good news and good practices are few and far apart. However, we're also conscious that we are not an island unto ourselves in our turbulent region. We are clear-sighted and have no ambitions to play a much larger role regionally. Our foreign policy during this difficult period will continue to support the forces of moderation, stability, and openness. It will reject attempts to reshape our world along sectarian and extremist lines. This is why the UAE is willing to shoulder responsibilities together with our partners to promote stability, moderation, and economic dynamism. To do so, we will require a common strategic vision and shared plan of action. With that end in mind, I'm looking forward to a frank and open discussion. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.